Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Jacob Licklider here once again. It's a Sunday night, which means that it's time for the second episode of Series 12, Spyfall Part 2. This is, as usual, my general initial thoughts of just watching it. And of course, there's not going to be a restraint on spoilers, so if you haven't watched the episode and you don't want to be spoiled, go watch it now. And also, as always, due to the YouTube's changing rules on Kappa, this video is not made for kids. Yes, Doctor Who is a family show and kids can watch it. This video is aimed at teens and adults. So, Spyfall Part 2 is very different than Spyfall Part 1. Still kind of playing with the espionage thing, but having two very distinct plot lines, one for the Doctor and one for the Doctor's companions, that they go in parallel very, very nicely. This is actually quite weird to say, because overall, I think I enjoyed it. Yeah, this is very weird. It feels weird because this is a two-parter, and I don't think we've had a two-parter that I have enjoyed both parts, and I'd say both parts are good. Since as far back as, I think since, really since Series 6, with The Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon. Maybe Series 9 if you want to count Under the Lake and Before the Flood, but I'm still kind of iffy on those two episodes. But yeah, I actually enjoyed this episode. It was a, God. Here's the problem. It was a good slice of Doctor Who, doing some interesting things, with the show, being that, we're doing a new sort of, being a new, Doctor, of course, but what's nice is that it's to show, is that Spyfall Part 2, I'm glad that this story, it felt fleshed out over two parts. It definitely feels like a complete story that needed two parts to tell. The Doctor's plot line was actually being sent back in time and having to try to figure out the Master's plan while sort of jumping from 21st century way back to the 1830s with Ada Lovelace, and then jumping forward to the 1940s, dragging Ada Lovelace with her by accident to World War II, 1943, with Nora Khan, who is the first radio operator behind enemy lines. I think the first, or either the first or the first female. I wasn't quite sure, but two people who were also sort of just important in the line of computers, which is just a clever way of getting computers involved with the plot and getting the plot moving towards, computers as a, just sort of to what the Master's plan is. I will say, this is an episode where I really felt Jodie Whittaker did a great job as the Doctor. Facing off against the Master, there's just something that almost pushes Jodie into the role incredibly well here, which has been kind of an issue I've had with with her performance, is that she hasn't really had a threat. It's like, this is a threat. There is a scale here, you feel she is in danger because these Kavaran, which are the I guess the race from another universe of beings of light that we don't particularly see, we don't particularly see, definitely you know, come from, and the Master's allied himself with as they're following her, and she's trying to figure it out. I think this was a great way of having the Doctor and companions split up was a great way of really giving sort of switching up the second part, but also definitely continuing the story, and not causing a problem, which was something that Stephen Moffat would do. And I really like the Doctor's thought process of working it out. There's also something really, really interesting at the end where there are hints that we might be trying to push the 13th Doctor down a darker path. Mainly, we bring back the idea of her manipulating the situation to get her friend to save her friends after the fact, very much in a very McCoy-esque way. That's how they solve the crashing plane. The Doctor goes back in time and fixes it. And that just feels like very Sylvester McCoy to me, which actually a lot of this story feels very Sylvester McCoy to me. I'm gonna be honest. And if you want to emulate an era that's gonna make me happy, it's emulate the latter McCoy era, because that's my favorite era of the show, and I of course love the VNAs. But yeah, like just seeing her like it's a very, very clever sort of thing, but also very much something that the Doctor would do to save her friends, and it's very much something that really kind of puts the other characters in a position of, do we really trust the Doctor? Because yeah, there's a decent amount here where the question is, can we really trust the Doctor, because we don't particularly know her. It's this, she, like, the Master does succeed in actually getting some discord into the Doctor's friends, which is great. We end up, this is, I think, the first time she's actually to tell him, no, I'm from Gallifrey in the constellation of Disturbance. I'm a Time Lord. I stole the TARDIS and ran away, and I've been traveling ever since. So, something very different for the character as we have to explore just sort of this idea. It's definitely an aspect of the story that I like. It also kind of sets up the series as maybe going to be creating a more rocky relationship. I'm not entirely sure. But there's definitely... Chibnall is clearly bringing back the idea of a series arc and dealing with something. Things I liked as well, I really liked the Companions plotline. One, putting Graham, Ryan, and Yaz on their own really highlights their chemistry together, that they do have a good chemistry, and just that they are capable enough on their own. Like, they were like Ryan and Graham were smart enough to steal some of the spy gadgets because they were cool, and that's used as a defense, sort of keeping with the spy theme, because the main theme of their plot is about, oddly enough, data collection, and the fact that Barton's company, Vor, Lenny Henry's character, has an entire, all the data of the different characters, basically under his control. He has the data of everyone in the world, and that's sort of how they're going to take over the world, by basically letting the Kavarans invade through that. In a very Cyberman-esque plan, though they're not upgrading, they're just straight up just killing the world, and the survivors will be slave labor for new alien overlords. In sort of a very Doctor Who style plot. And you have him as a very... Lenny Henry does make an effective secondary villain. mainly playing the character as one who is trying to take over the world, and basically gain power and work with the master. And I think the idea is that he escapes at the end. That is one thing that I'm a bit annoyed, is that they didn't really wrap everything up with his character, and there wasn't some big final confrontation with him, when perhaps there should have been. That would have perhaps made things a little more interesting, and just a little more made things make a little more sense as a character. But also, the final big thing about this episode was actually Sacha Dhawan's turn as the Master. I really enjoyed him. He was playing very much the character very much. He was doing the insane part of the character, but he wasn't doing just a John Sim impersonation like I had feared. He's playing it a little more serious. There's a little more of a class act with him in the role, which I think works better for the Master to be a bit more classy. I've heard people comparing him to Alex McQueen on Big Finish. He's kind of close to McQueen, but I don't. I think brings a difference. A different enough energy to the role and a different enough just spin on it, not to so much be as ripped off from McQueen's Master. Which don't get me wrong, I love McQueen's Master, but I think Dhawan is actually pretty good and really great. And there's some great interactions with the Doctor. I love their scene on the Eiffel Tower, and the Master's back to being evil. Like, he bursts as soon as the Doctor makes it to the 1840s by accident. After just a little bit to calm down, he bursts in and starts using his TCE just to compress people immediately. It's great. He's crazy. He is dangerous. He will kill people. He's very much trying to. I think he's basically just wanting world domination in a planet of his own here. It's clearly that was what his goals are. He's doing this for basically because he's the Master, he's crazy, and you will obey him, as he's so often to say. On that part, I will say he does seem to be setting up a story arc here. Chris Chibnall is with this idea of the timeless child, and the idea that Gallifrey has been burnt to the ground again. It's back in a bubble universe, effectively undoing the end of the Moffat era, which I'm apprehensive about. I like it because it feels there are things that they're hinting at that we're going to maybe delving into Time Lord mythology, that are very VNA-esque, and that always intrigues me. It'll be interesting to see how Chibnall's take on the Gallifreyan mythos differs from the take of the VNAs and the EDAs and the TV show itself. I feel like we're going to be going different. Like, there's this idea of the timeless child as a secret that the Founding Fathers didn't want them to know, which, like, could this be a spin on the idea of the Pythia from the VNAs, or what could we be? It's very much something that I enjoy, and I think could give fans some interesting stuff. If Chibnall canonizes Looms, officially brings them into the new show, I would be very happy. Like, seriously, I want Looms back in the show as soon as possible, please, because they're Looms. Use them. It's such a good idea. But I will say, there are definitely some issues with this episode. Mainly a lot of it. A lot of the stuff with Lenny Henry being underutilized after the second act. Like, there's a point where he kills his mother so we can try to remember him, and he just kind of disappears. He doesn't get, brought to justice. So he's probably going to be back, but I don't know. Like, his plan is foiled, but he's just not as effective, almost playing second fiddle to the Master, which is okay, because he's sort of playing the villain for the companions, but the Master is the main villain for the Doctor. and they don't quite mesh as well. And I think this is one that you basically just need to make sure you get some sort of fallout for the characters. But overall, I think Spyfall Part 2 is a great episode. I think, Spyfall overall has been a great story. I'd probably give it I'm thinking about the same score as last week, probably a 7 out of 10. Maybe 7.5 or an 8 if I'm feeling generous. I'll have to watch it again, but definitely, Series 12 is definitely off to a great start. I'd argue I feel more energized for this series than I did for Series 11. I feel like Chibnall has, in fact, taken some feedback, worked with it. So, of course, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of Spyfall Part 2 and Part 1 and the story as a whole? What are your hopes for Series 11? If you agree with me, disagree with me, like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.